So just leave it alone, 'cause we can't see eye to eye. They ain't no good guys, they ain't no bad guys. There's only you and me, and we just disagree. Welcome to Wrestling with Egos, and yes, you heard it right. I actually went on a limb and sang. Hope you didn't think that sucked. If you do, my apologies. But it was fitting tonight to start off with the chorus from "We Just Disagree" by Dave Mason, because as we talked about last week at the end of episode 138 of Wrestling with Egos, my best friend and I tonight are gonna fight. My name's Patrick. Again, welcome to Wrestling with Egos. However you may be checking this show out, whether it be on the YouTubes or on any of our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 platforms that you can catch us on the podcast, whether it be Anchor, Apple, Google, Spotify, Amazon, or iHeartRadio. Thank you so much for making us a part of your wrestling infotainment, especially since we got Full Gear coming around the corner tomorrow. Gonna be a great pay-per-view, and we're not gonna talk about it. Why? Because everybody else does, and we don't do that. Again, I'm Patrick, the guy on the big screen over there with the Rock poster to his left shoulder is my best friend Brian, and of course the big man himself, sporting a shirt of a man who was Joe the policeman on that episode of That's My Mama. Show your love for Mr. Randy Watson.
Yes.
How is Coming to America the through line for this show anymore? I don't understand.
Yes, and for the record, as of right now, it is 10:18 Eastern Time, November 18th, 2022. Brian, it has been so long since Brian has seen Coming to America that we've spent the last hour dropping Coming to America references, and they've all.
Yeah, I have to queue it up sometime real soon.
Yeah.
But that's another story for another time, as you're about to find out.
We very much a different story for a different time, because tonight, boys and girls, we got business to attend to, if you will.
Thank you,
because what we do on this show, one of our favorite types of episodes is the famed GOAT discussions, where we determine whether said wrestler is deserving of being one of the greatest of all time. Now, when you really get down to brass tacks in our generation of wrestling, who's the greatest of all time? Will be one of two people: Bret Hart or Shawn Michaels. One of us feels that it's Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels isn't near the tippy top of that list. And the other one feels like Shawn Michaels is the best and Bret Hart is criminally overrated. By the way, that's me. And this is something that Brian and I have had copious arguments about on my couch, his couch, in restaurants, having catching up with each other and just shooting the breeze on our birthdays, at big wrestling events when Big Isaac's on the other side of the room trying to referee us. Well, why do you think Isaac's here? Because every good fight, right on cue as well, every good fight needs a man in pinstripes. And yes, it may be a Public Enemy jersey, but you get it.
Get the point.
You get it. Big man, Mr. Referee, Mr. Official, how are you tonight?
I'm good. I've been ready for this. I've been taking some notes. I got a lot of points that I want to make. I want to see you guys just go at it. I'm gonna sit back and let y'all do what y'all do, and then I'm gonna be.
Don't be one of those AEW referees who tries to get his stuff in all the time. Come on.
Oh God, Jesus, God, no.
I'm gonna call it right down the middle.
So there's only one referee you can be, and that's Mr. Bill Alfonso, the man that calls it right down the middle. Just if you break out of
resist when you said I got some points I got to make.
Your points. If you break out a whistle though, if you break out a whistle during this show, I'm driving to Shaker Heights, and I'm going to cram it up your butt.
Bring it on.
B, how are you, my dear best friend? And are you ready?
I am ready, doing well. First of all, I want to start off by wishing everyone a happy Thanksgiving. With Thanksgiving coming up, hope you find time to enjoy it.
Oh yeah. By the way, programming note: we ain't doing a show next week.
Fair enough. And one of the things that is a hallmark of Thanksgiving when the family gets together is there's going to be an argument about something. And in my opinion, there aren't many rivalries that elicit such strong opinions in WWE or in wrestling, period, quite like Bret and Shawn.
No. I think honestly, the only rivalry that might have that same kind of vitriol might be AEW fans versus the rest of the world.
And even so, that's still a new kid on the block kind of thing. It's not like that has had time to marinate just yet.
I'm not saying it does. I'm saying it has the same vitriol, which
right.
You cannot deny that, but it doesn't have the same substance. No.
And I'm going to clarify something you said in your intro.
Okay.
I do not believe that Shawn Michaels does not belong in the discussion of who's the tippy top. Because all of our dear viewers and listeners of Wrestling with Ego should know that I did not come here tonight to bury Shawn Michaels. That is not what I'm here to do. Because...
All right, Mark Anthony.
No, because I think that's a problem with discourse now and debate. And I'm not talking about you specifically, Patrick, but I'm talking about when people in general want to debate, they want to tear down the opposition.
Right.
Instead of telling me what you can do or telling me why I should be on your side, you're going to talk about what the other person can't do. Well, that doesn't really tell me anything. So that's my game plan tonight.
Believe it or not, that is mine as well, is a compare and contrast, and not just to sing the praises of the guy that I think is the correct answer to this argument. It is to look at both the positives and the negatives of both, and in my opinion, show where the negatives of Bret Hart outweigh his positives more than Shawn's do. And here is where I will start. The best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be, and he's not even the best technical wrestler in his own damn family. You cannot call yourself that when there is someone in your own stable, the Hart Foundation, someone in your own family, your brother Owen, that can wrestle circles around you and has much more personality than you do. Bret Hart isn't even the best in his own family. There's my first point.
Well, here's my first counterpoint. Bret came up with the slogan. Bret was the one that pounded it home all those years. Bret's the one that sold all the T-shirts and merchandise based off of himself calling himself the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be. Bret is also the one that had, for a while anyway, audiences and arenas eating out of the palm of his hand when he would say that. And not just in Canada either. He had people chanting that phrase along with him. So how much of that is
they
just
chanted along with Conan in WCW? You can't give wrestling fans credit for this one. Wrestling fans collectively, us included, you get wrestling fans into a large group, we will chant along with anything.
Speak for yourself. You and I have been to wrestling events together, and I pick and choose what I chant, sir.
Okay, you pick and choose what you chant. Large groups? No. Tommy Lee Jones said it best in Men in Black. A person is capable of great and powerful and wonderful things. People are panicky and stupid. Isaac.
Some people at some point in time, when you've gone to a wrestling event, we all stood here and chanted behind Big Papa Pump. So so that point is kind of mute. it was one of his things. So, boom. I leave it at that one.
I'll take the point on that one.
I'll give Patrick the point on that one.
Over a catchphrase. I don't understand this.
No.
It's Brett's self-belief.
No, he's giving me the point. Excuse me. He's giving me the point based off the fact that he had, quoting you, he had audiences eating out of the palm of his hand, chanting that along with him. And my counterpoint was they chanted along with Conan. They chanted along with Scott, as he said, Scott Steiner. They chanted it along, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages.
I'll tell you what, folks. This is how the
rest my case.
go. I'll take the 10 count and I'll go to the back.
No,
if this is how.
No.
Here, look, we're early. Let's just don't take it personal. I got some other things that Patrick I like. But go ahead.
I can already tell the way he's talking. I know there's a point that I'm going to say later on that he's going to try and blow me up on. I know it's coming.
Oh my goodness. Well, I'll start off by talking about his versatility, and Bret Hart I'm talking about, because he started out as an amateur wrestler in Canada, and he honed his craft under the tutelage of his dad. And yes, his brothers were doing it too, but he got great acclaim in Canada. By the time he came to WWF, they turned him into a tag team wrestler with Jim the Anvil Neidhart. We all know the accolades that the Hart Foundation have earned, and the influence that they have had on subsequent tag teams going forward. He transitions out of that into a singles career and immediately starts winning championships. And two of the most memorable ones were Intercontinental Championship matches where he beat Mr. Perfect and one where Bulldog beat him in Wembley.
Two of my favorite, believe it or not, two of my favorite matches.
Yes. Nobody, in my opinion, can mix the technical with the brawling the way Bret Hart can. I know some people have come since that have done a better job of it, but I'm talking, and here's the thing. I'm talking about in that pocket. I'm talking I'm talking about like 88 to like 96 before all the Montreal Screwjob shit. I even said I wasn't going to reference those two words tonight, but that's the last time you're going to hear me say those two words tonight. I'm not here to talk about that. If you want to listen to Brian and Patrick talk about the Montreal Screwjob, folks, go back in the Annals of Wrestling with Egos because we did a Montreal Screwjob episode early on.
And
I'm not here to talk about that.
And I'll save you the breath. Looking back on that episode, I thought that episode sucked.
Really?
I was looking back on it. I was like, we could have swung a little harder on that one.
I may have to add something.
What did we do? Did we like analyze it, or did we just give our feelings on it, or I don't even because it was like in the double-digit episodes.
It was. We analyzed it, and we pretty much all came to the same conclusion. The words Bret and bitterness were used in the same sentence quite often.
Okay.
But as far as that episode's concerned, I was a little disappointed because it was one of those episodes. Because if I'm not mistaken, RJ was with us, and there was one of those episodes where all three of us. Oh, I agree with that. I agree with that. I agree with that.
From that sense, yeah, you're right. There wasn't any like conflict to make it, what it could have been.
We had not learned that somebody needs to lie to pick a fight at it sometimes. Which, by the way, nobody in this episode is fibbing on anything. Brian and I really do not agree on this. Isaac, you said you had a point.
Yeah, no, you're right about that. I will give you technical and the brawling aspect. There was pretty much no one at that time in that era that could mix it up the way that Bret did. So I will give you credit for that one. So check to you, my friend.
He's on the board, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, he's on the board.
Mr. Official, may I?
You may.
I understand giving him the point because what he said is very true. Nobody mixed technical and brawling the way Bret Hart did. Look at the rest of Bret Hart's contemporaries, though. Bret Hart's contemporaries were Bret's size. I'll give you a hint. One. And it's the other guy that's a part of this conversation. He's in matches with powerhouse guys, like his own brother-in-law, like Diesel, Razor Ramon, Vader, Undertaker. I mean, hell, he defended the title once. Hell, he wrestled Yokozuna. He wrestled Mabel. There weren't too many guys on his level that could technically wrestle and brawl at the same time. The only other person aside from Shawn that was his size and his contemporary was Austin later on in Bret's WWF run. So again, I see giving him that point because he's right. But my counterpoint to that is everybody that he had to share the ring with brawled because they were all twice his size. I mean,
is that his fault?
No, it's not his fault, and I'm not saying that is his fault. I'm saying that's a circumstance of the point that you're trying to make. Again, your point is very true, 100% accurate. ... That's all I'm saying on that one.
Okay.
I'm conceding, but I don't want it to get lost that his feuds were with guys that he had to do this to.
I see what you're saying, and that is
that he can then show his intelligence about here's how you cut a guy like that down to size.
Exactly. And that, as far as his technical mastery, he was very good at it. I mean, I am not going to sit here and say that Bret Hart sucked. He did not suck. Bret Hart was very good. Bret Hart does belong in the discussion of one of the greatest of all time. I do not think Bret Hart is in the top 5 of greatest of his generation, though. I
can see where you're going with that. Yeah.
And I'm not talking his generation being just WWF. I'm talking the entire Monday Night War because both shows were going on at the same time. And keep this in mind. When Bret in 93 and 94, when Bret was starting to hit the zenith of his career, when in 92, Bret finished number 5 in the PWI 500, and then 93 and 94 finished number 1. You also have to think that the people that he would have been having the best matches of all time with, all those guys were in WCW because you're talking about Flair, you're talking about Sting, you're talking about Arn Anderson. I can keep going. You know, for all of his time in WWF, he never had a match with Hogan. He never had a match with Savage. Even though they were on their way out, going to WCW when he was starting to come into his own as WWF champion.
Here's what I think about that. I get kind of tired of people, and I'm not saying, Patrick, this is what you're doing, but I get kind of tired of people using guys like Hogan and Savage as the measuring stick.
Oh, I'm not.
When
or no.
Well, and like you can't prove yourself until you get in the ring with X, Y, and Z. By that point, Hogan was the dictionary definition of diminished skills.
Oh, God.
Savage, same thing. I appreciate, I know, Savage had more than Hogan ever did. That much is we don't need to talk about, that right now.
Agree.
But this kind of goes into another point that I want to make. Until Shawn and Bret started having their rivalry with each other, they were kept in 2 different orbits. And the kinds of guys that Bret was having feuds with, in my opinion, pales in comparison to the kinds of guys that Shawn was having his feuds with. Bret had to take a lot more chicken shit and turn it into chicken salad than Shawn did, in my opinion. When you have feuds with the Patriot, Jean-Pierre Lafitte, and who's the third guy that stuck out to me? And Hakushi. And you got to take those guys and make them and elevate them. That's a lot harder. I'm not saying that we should pity Bret because he had to work hard to elevate those guys and bring them along with him. But it seemed to me like Shawn was always in the high profile. Shawn and Diesel, Shawn and Taker. And I'm not talking about later, 25, 26 era Shawn Taker. I'm talking about kind of the precursor to,
right.
97 and everything like that.
One of the names that you bring up, I'm glad you brought it up, and I hate that you brought it up at the same time, because that, and I won't even use the WWF name for him because I thought it was stupid. We're talking about Jinsei Shinsaki Hakushi.
Okay.
Jinsei
My
Shinsaki,
ignorance may be showing on this because I'm sure he would have had accolades elsewhere.
Yeah, he did.
Okay.
He's a god on the other side of the country, on the other side of the world. And much like the Vince McMahon ran WWF, WWE all the way up till the last 6 months, foreign stars fell flat in WWE. 1993. It doesn't matter if it's Jinsei Shinsaki. It doesn't matter if it's Shinsuke Nakamura. Japanese stars fall flat in WWE because of 3 letters, VKM.
And USA, let's be honest.
No, because honestly and truly, I think Jinsei Shinsaki, for the brief time that he and Hayabusa were in ECW feuding with Rob Van Dam and Sabu over the ECW Tag Team Championships, good Lord, those were great matches.
Well, I'm talking about Vince's presentation. Vince's presentation by design was to make them look inferior to.
Exactly. Exactly. But you take those same wrestlers and you put them in either one of the other 2 large American promotions at the time, ECW or WCW, and those Japanese stars did a lot better. If Muta and Chono would have actually spent more time in the U.S. than they did, they would have had significantly higher roles, not only in the company, but also in the NWO.
I believe it. I've seen enough of Muta and WCW to know where you're coming from on that.
Jinsei Shinsaki is one of the truest examples in WWF of what could or should have been. That should have been amazing because that guy was an absolute freak athlete. Brian, I don't know if you realize it or not, but you muted yourself. Okay, cool. No, Brian, I didn't know Brian knew that he muted himself because he's coughing. So,
that's precisely why I muted myself.
And I appreciate that. I wish I knew how to do it because kiddo's over here not feeling all that great, and she's coughing her head off. So,
you should have a microphone on the bottom of your screen.
No, I don't see one.
Okay.
Keep in mind, I'm using my phone. You guys are using computers.
Fair point.
So there you go. So here's another big point that I wanted to go to, and it's kind of piggybacking off of something you said, and it was the people that they had to work with. Look at the common denominators in the people that both Shawn and Bret had to work with. They both worked Vader. They both worked Taker. They both worked Diesel and Razor. And I do not recall any of these common denominator matches being better Bret Hart matches than they were Shawn Michaels matches. The matches with Shawn and Diesel were great. The match at SummerSlam with Shawn and Vader is one of the best big man versus little man matches. And honestly and truly, I think Vader's second best opponent on American soil, the other one being Sting. And for me, the Sting-Vader rivalry in WCW, that is some high level to live up to. Shawn and Vader didn't, but they did a heck of a lot better than Bret and Vader did. Something else I want to point out. If you look, and I did compile a list of the PWI 500, while both of them were pre the height of the Attitude Era. Because keep in mind, when we're getting to the infamous match that we're not going to mention by name anymore tonight, neither one of these guys were appearing on the PWI 500 at all. One of them stopped appearing in 94. The other one stopped appearing in 96. So from the time that the PWI 500 started in 1991 to the end of his wrestling career, Bret Hart appeared on it 3 years. 1992, 1993, 1994. Yeah. He was not on in 95.
You're going to tell me there were 500 guys better than Bret Hart in Meltzer's opinion?
Top 10.
Oh, you didn't say that.
Oh, I'm sorry, I did. No. In the top 10. You just
said the list, and you didn't say
where
you were cutting it off at.
Let me reiterate. From 91 to the end of Bret's career, he was in the top 10 of the PWI 500 3 times. 92, where he was 5th, 93, and 94. Shawn, in that same time, from 91 to the end of his career the first time, he was 3rd in 93, 4th in 94, 2nd in 95, 1st in 96. More appearances, Bret has more number 1 spots, but Shawn has more appearances inside the top 10. For me, it's the consistency of Shawn Michaels versus Bret.
I'm actually going to agree with you on that one, because
this is the analogy I wanted to make. Bret Hart, in the beginnings of his run in the early 90s, Bret Hart was Tiger Woods. Shawn Michaels was the rest of the field when they finally caught up to him. When there was competition, Bret shrank under the spotlight. When there was nobody that could touch Bret, Bret was the guy. People rose up to meet Bret, and Bret wasn't on their level anymore.
Let me ask you a question. Do you think the match with Austin at 13, Mania 13, is an example of the competition rising up to meet him?
Yes.
Because that's a 5-star rated match.
That is, yeah. That is the competition rising up to meet him. And the worst thing that could have happened to Bret that night happened. Nobody was talking about him. Bret was insignificant at the end of that match. Nobody remembers that he won. Nobody gives a crap that he won. You do, because you're making the argument for him. Most people don't see Bret getting his hand raised. Most people see, exactly. Most people see Austin's face bleeding while he's in that sharpshooter.
Well, then most people need to stop burying the lead, because it comes who win the match. Let's go. I know I'm kidding on that one. Come on now.
My thing is with Bret, like I said, when the rest of the field caught up to him, Bret couldn't hang. When Bret had a leg up on the rest of the field, Bret Hart could easily tout that he was the best there is, the best there was, or the best there ever will be. And then everybody else showed up. Or as to quote the Big Man, everybody showed up and showed out.
That's on the back of the T-shirt for sure.
Exactly. I mean,
That's on the back of the T-shirt,
all right.
ladies and gentlemen.
So the last year that Bret's in the top 5 or top 10 is 94. Here's the rest of the top 10 of 1994. Bret, Hogan, Flair, Vader at 4, Shawn at 5, Austin at 6, Razor, Sting, Steamboat, and Owen. So that's 94. Here's 95 and then
7 of
90.
those guys are WCW guys.
Say
Or
what?
6 of them. 6 of those guys are WCW guys, so Bret can't even wrestle them.
Right. Here's 95 and 96. Diesel, Shawn, Sting, Bret. Oh, I missed that one. Bret was in the top 5 in 90. Top 5 in 95. Bret's at 4 in 95. Sabu, Hogan, Vader, Savage, Razor, and Misawa over in All Japan. 96 is Shawn, the Giant, Sting, Kenta Kobashi, Ahmed Johnson, Kevin Nash, Rey Mysterio Jr., Hogan, Sabu, and then Flair. For the record,
We need to do a GOAT episode about Ahmed Johnson. No, we don't.
the hell you say?
Sorry, someone is about to get banned.
Yeah.
I just wanted to see Big Bang's reaction to that one.
For the record, after 1996, nobody else, neither one of them show back up in the PWI 500 until Shawn comes back in 2004.
Okay, we can all in
the top 10 of the PWI 500. I forgot to say that again. My apologies.
When it comes to athleticism, we all know the Shawn pairs in comparison is above Bret in that aspect. That's why he's able to have those matches that he had against everyone else, and it seems that he's so much better when it comes to that. So, I mean, I will give you Shawn on that one because Shawn is, just a pure athlete. And at the time, when Shawn first got in, he wanted to wrestle Ric Flair because he wanted to wrestle Rick, and Rick was on another level, and Vince was like, no, I'm not going to let you do it because you're not ready yet. And he refused. And Shawn begged him and pleaded with him to do it. And he wouldn't. Vince was like, no, it's not your time yet. Shawn wanted to put himself against someone of that caliber, and Vince wouldn't allow it. Now, in a couple of years, he was ready to do that and surpassed him. And we all know what the level Shawn got to. No one's arguing that. Bret was just, their styles were just so different. And that's the other thing that was different about it, because the way that each of them worked. And that's another big factor in the whole.
I feel like the next point I might bring up is going to get shot down really quick. But as far as goosebump-inducing moments go, you're going to be hard-pressed to find a more goosebump-inducing moment than when the Hart Foundation comes out at In Your House Canadian Stampede.
Can't touch that one.
I mean, I know it was in Canada, but still.
Can't touch it.
The way that, how beloved all those guys were.
Including the two Americans.
Yeah, including Brian Pillman and Neidhart. I mean, if you wanted me to make a list of my top 5 goosebump-inducing moments in wrestling, that's one of them.
No argument there. No argument there.
I can make an argument in terms of top 5. I mean, it's a great one, but top 5?
I mean, I have to do some research. It's hard for me to, pick those on the spot. And I know your counter to that would, be, let's talk about all the goosebump-inducing moments that Shawn's had. I mean, the first Hell in a Cell match, there were some goosebump-inducing moments in that one. Him zip-lining down to the ring at WrestleMania 12, kind of, because no one had ever seen anything like that before.
SummerSlam against Hunter when he came back.
Yeah.
Survivor Series. Right after that, when he won Elimination Chamber and won the World Heavyweight title in Madison Square Garden, he hits that super kick. 1, 2, 3, and ladies and gentlemen, that was a pop. Go back and watch, but don't use your eyes, use your ears. 1, 2, 3, explosion.
And you got those brown pants over too.
God bless the brown pants.
I guess I'm going to hit you with the numbers, and I know you got numbers for Shawn too.
Oh yeah. I got your numbers too, Bubba.
Okay. Bret he's a 5-time WWE champion, 654 combined days as champion, nothing to sneeze at. He's a 2-time Intercontinental champion, 2-time tag team champion. He's a United States champion. I gotta put that in there. 2 times King of the Ring winner. A co-winner of the Royal Rumble. I almost didn't put that down because I thought that finish was so stupid, but it's part of the litany of accomplishments, so I had to.
Oh God, that was horrible.
He's a 2-time Hall of Fame inductee, both on his own and as a tag team with Jim the Anvil Neidhart. And he's a 5-time Slammy Award winner.
You're really going to reference the Slammies?
Sure. Why not? It counts. It's part of his accomplishments. I mean, he's been recognized for his work. He's been put in those positions where Vince realized during that time period, you're my workhorse, you're the go-to, you're the constant, you're going to have the title reigns. And it says a lot about the trust that Vince had in Bret, that he could be trusted to work with all of those names that I mentioned before and have them be watchable matches, and then occasionally have the bangers mixed in there too.
I question the trust that Vince had for him after the match that we're not going to discuss, but that has to be mentioned leading up to it, after when Bret was getting ready to leave.
Well, we know about the acrimony that was going on there, and my argument centers around that 5-year period. I'm not really talking about what a dumpster fire 97 was for a lot of reasons, and I'm not really even talking about the tag team part of it. I mean, I'm talking about that pocket, that 92 to 96, 97 era pocket, where Bret and a few other people, because I found, I forget what website it was, but I looked at the roster. They have the pictures of the rosters that go through the different eras. And my God, the rosters were so wafer thin during those. I mean, we're talking when Abe Knuckleball Schwartz is the first one alphabetically in one of those years. And you've got prepubescent Matt and Jeff Hardy. And you've got Barry Windham as the striker. Yeah,
The Stalker.
The Stalker, sorry. I got the name wrong. I started to play the how would I book this roster game, and I'm like, I don't even know where to start. I'm like, well, there's The Undertaker. There's Bret. There's Shawn. And then it's like, okay, and then what? I would not be able to book a federation at that point. So, yes. I know some people lack vision. I know.
No. I'm not going there. I'm going elsewhere with this, with my counterpoint. To be able to use that argument is absolutely counterproductive to the argument that everybody else tries to make about Bret, saying that Bret can work with anyone, because there is a documentary on Peacock about the lost tape, the greatest match of all time between Bret Hart and a journeyman by the name of Mega Man Tom McGee. Tom McGee was this big dude, looked like Kerry Von Erich. And they had a non-televised match, and McGee looked absolutely amazing to the point where, oh my God, we're going to push this guy. This guy's going to be Bret's next big challenger. And then McGee has his next match against the Genius or Barry Horowitz or somebody like that and looks like absolute ass. It's now you're learning. No, it wasn't Tom McGee that made that match amazing. It was Bret. I don't want to hear the argument about the roster was paper thin, because if Bret Hart could make an absolute banger of a match with somebody like Tom McGee, Bret Hart can work with anybody.
And I'm not talking about it like that. I'm talking about the quality of opponent that he was saddled with. And I know because Shawn was there too, he was saddled with the same quality or lack of quality opponents. So maybe that's not the point I want to make, because Shawn was cycling through all these people too.
With all due respect, that's exactly what I just said. You know, they didn't have quality opponents. You can't bring that up because Bret's the best wrestler on the planet. Bret's supposed to be able to work with anybody. Look what he did with Tom McGee. Argument invalid, in my opinion. The depth or lack thereof of the roster is insignificant for this argument because as far as Bret is concerned, because of that. The depth or lack thereof of the roster for Shawn is irrelevant just as much because of Bret.
We'll throw that out because if we sit here and we talk about, you're right, the depth of the roster at the time was complete garbage. So let's
if I may, I've been wanting to say this all day. If I may, Your Honor,
I'll allow it.
Of course you will.
If you're going to make that argument about the depth of roster for insert name of champion here, then you create the slippery slope of making that argument with every champion. And now every GOAT discussion that we can have becomes irrelevant, because now you're like, oh, well, Kenny Omega is considered the best because he had to work with Okada and had to work with Naito and had to work with and he worked with Nakamura when Nakamura was frickin' Nakamura and all of these guys. And, John Cena had all of these guys to work with. John Cena should be way, 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 way up here because look at all these people he worked with. No, John Cena was good. John Cena's not filet mignon like we're talking about right now. So, depth of roster, argument invalid. Across the board.
Except for one. And that would be Ric Flair. And the reason I say that is because remember, he was the World Heavyweight Champion. He had to go to each region. He didn't have anyone too specific. He had to fight the best wrestler at that region at that time, and they may have been hot garbage, but they were the hottest thing at that time. And Ric Flair, as we all know, could make a lamp look as good as make a lamp look as great as any wrestler in the world. And he did that.
He did. His name was Kerry Von Erich.
Against every single wrestler in each and every territory he had to go to.
Forgive me for maybe getting too far afield here. Let's go back about 3 weeks and put Bret Hart in the time machine. What era would you dump Bret Hart in if you want to see what he's really got? Because I'm starting to feel like he might have been miscast in the era that he was in, where,
I would put him in one of two places. I would put him mid to late 90s WCW. My God. Could you imagine Flair, Steamboat, Sting?
Double A.
I mean, my God. That could have been amazing.
Tully.
Huh?
Tully.
We're talking mid to late, so Tully was already on the shits. If you, yeah, I'm trying to put just something on the tip of my nose. If you get what I'm saying, totally had a problem. I would either put Bret there, or I would put Bret at the absolute height of NXT.
And you're talking take mid '90s Bret and dump him in NXT.
I'm talking take, 1993, 1994 Bret Hart when he was PWI 500 #1. Hell, 92, 93, 94, 95 Bret Hart. That 4-year run. Put him in either the mid to late 90s in WCW, even though the mid to late 90s in WCW in large sucked, except for like the top, or put him at the absolute height of NXT when the NXT title is being traded about by the names of Andrade, Aleister Black, Drew McIntyre, and then you get into Ciampa Gargano.
That's what I was just daydreaming about, is Tommaso Ciampa versus Bret Hart.
God.
Yes, please.
God.
Get well soon, Tommaso, by the way.
Oh, yeah. If we're talking that run of NXT, there's somebody else I'd rather have against Bret than Tommaso Ciampa. Drew.
Ooh, that would be interesting.
Yeah.
Because Drew is that big guy that can be imposing against Bret, but he's athletic enough to be able to go to stand with Bret Hart. That would be a dog ugly match because they intended it to look dog ugly. And I'd sign up for it. I'd watch that 2 out of 3 falls. Heck yeah.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
So what else you got, sir? Because I'm actually at the end of my notes pretty much.
Okay, well here's what I've got. 1990.
And I'm still waiting for that incendiary thing you were talking about before, but
I'm thinking I've missed my opportunity. So we'll see if I can work it back in, because I'm honestly not feeling it right now. So Pro Wrestling Illustrated. You mentioned Bret's titles, and you mentioned the fact that Bret Hart held the WWF title five times for a combined reign of 654 days, where Shawn only held it 3 times for a combined 396 days. Cool. You can do that. You can make the fact that Bret was a Triple Crown winner before Shawn was. We can talk about the fact that Shawn was the very first Grand Slam winner. I'm not going to worry about titles. Here's what I'm going to worry about. 1993, 94, 95, 96, 2004, 2005, 2006, 2007, 2008, 2009, and 2010. Would you like to know what awards Shawn won every one of those years?
I'm a jackass? No, I'm kidding.
Match of the year from Pro Wrestling Illustrated. Now, here's the names. And some of these names you'll be like, wait, that was match of the year? 93 against Marty Jannetty. 94 against Razor at WrestleMania 10. Right. 95 against Diesel at Mania 11. 96 against Bret at WrestleMania 12, Iron Man match.
Right.
Fast forward 2004 against Triple H and the Murderer at WrestleMania 20. At 2005 at WrestleMania 21 against Angle. 2006 WrestleMania 22 against Vince. 2007 on a random Monday Night Raw. Brian, Pro Wrestling Illustrated Match of the Year. Whether or not it's Vince or not, I'm mentioning the awards, the PWI awards that he won.
How did that win Match of the Year? I'm not saying that it, fine, but how did that win Match of the Year?
Wait, what's that? Which match are you talking about?
Shawn and Vince.
WrestleMania when he jumped off the top of the cage and landed on him in the trash can?
It wasn't a cage; it was a ladder. He had Vince
Ladder.
on a table with a trash can over him, and then dropped the elbow drop.
I would love to know what other matches were under consideration.
Oh no. When you see that match, you'll say that's match of the year.
Go back and watch that, Brian.
Oh yeah. Got you on that.
Shawn carries that match all the way. No,
he does.
And it's a home run.
Constitute a match of the year.
It's a home run, Brian. It's a home run. I promise.
No. Patrick, that's not a home run. That's a grand slam on that one.
It's the best match Vince McMahon ever had.
Yes, it was.
And all Vince had to do was take an ass whooping. And he did. So I'll continue. 2007, on a random Raw in April, the 1 hour Broadway against John Cena. By the way, I'd like to point out that was right after we got Cena and Shawn at Mania. The Cena-Shawn match at Mania was overshadowed by that one. 2008 against Flair at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
2009 WrestleMania 25. He had an all right match at WrestleMania 25. It was only the greatest match of all freaking time.
3.5 stars. Just kidding.
Yeah, and then 2010 in his final match. Well, given
whatever we know.
Yeah, the final match against Taker at WrestleMania 26. So, with the exception of the years that he was out of wrestling, and 2003, because his first Mania match back was WrestleMania 19 against Chris Jericho. And by the way, that match stole the show at WrestleMania 19. The only things I remember I remember three things from WrestleMania 19. I remember that match. I remember Brock somehow not killing himself with that shooting star press. And I remember the match between Trish, Victoria, and Jazz.
How did you forget Austin Rock? Because that was Austin's supposed last match, and that's when Austin put him over.
I forgot that one, and I forgot that one. That's not.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm good for some things.
Whoa,
not many, but some.
Hey, that was a great rivalry. That wasn't a great match.
True.
So anyway,
I understand where you're going with this, and if you're trying to put Shawn over for the longevity,
no, I'm not trying to put
and the match quality.
No, match quality, yes. I can't make the argument about longevity for one simple reason. Shawn only came back because Shawn found God, got clean, and got his life together. Other than that, Shawn Michaels, when he left after WrestleMania 14?
Yes.
Yeah, after WrestleMania 14, Shawn was, as far as, really and truly should have been persona non grata in WWE because of just how toxic he had become. You also cannot make the longevity argument because we're talking, let's see, Montreal was 98, right?
97.
97. We're a year and a half away from Goldberg being an idiot and ending Bret's career. Longevity does not get to be used in this argument because I honestly feel as much as I think Shawn is far and away better, I can't even use Shawn's 2003 to 2010 7-year run where he just had banger after banger after banger after banger after banger because that's its own anthology, much like Edge right now. There's no you can't use that against Bret because Bret doesn't have anything here. It's got to be just that, essentially the argument has to stop at 1997.
Yeah. I wonder if on some level this argument, which has actually been kind of a genteel argument.
I'm surprised.
We're,
And
we are civilized gentlemen of leisure on the stroll here, Wrestling with Egos. But I wonder if on some levels this discussion, this argument doesn't come down to the age-old question of style versus substance. Because we know that Shawn Michaels is much more about the style, a little bit more flamboyant, a little bit more personality on the microphone, a little bit more memorable promos and stuff like that. Whereas I think of Bret Hart as the consummate, just bring your lunch pail, get down to business. Yeah, I'll cut a promo if I have to, but I'd rather just get my business done in the ring and things of that nature. I mean, the most memorable promo I can remember from Bret Hart was when he cut the one on Vince. You pissed off, you goddamn right I'm pissed off, and he shoved him down, in the ring. I mean, he never really had that very many memorable promos.
Okay, here we go. Now we're about to get into it. At least I feel like we're about to, because I'm about to get a little high and tight on this one. Bret Hart is the greatest mechanic in professional wrestling history. Mechanic meaning, for those of you that don't know the inner terms of wrestling, a great in-ring worker. He, as Cody Rhodes once said about Shawn Spears, he's a good hand. That's all Bret was. Bret had no personality. Bret had nothing except what happened inside that 20 by 20 box. Bret Hart could not talk his way out of a wet paper sack. He was as good on the mic as Nikki and Brie Bella. Tell me I'm wrong.
You're not wrong.
I'm
not trying to use that to sway anybody to my side. I'm stating obvious facts.
I am. Shawn is far and away a better professional wrestler because while Bret had some amazing matches throughout his career that did not have to involve Shawn Michaels, Shawn had amazing matches too. And Shawn could do the one thing, boys and girls, that Bret Hart couldn't do. He made you pay attention. He made you watch. I want to pay my hard-earned money to see him either whip somebody's butt or get his butt whipped. Bret Hart.
Show his ass.
Huh?
Or show his ass.
Yeah, that too.
Play girl.
Bret Hart never did that unless he was doing the anti-American, pro-Canadian bull crap, which was the dumbest thing ever. That's the only time Bret Hart got a true visceral reaction from an audience. Every other reaction he got was because, holy crap, that guy's really good in the ring. Bret Hart would have been a god, big G, not little G, if he would have been in New Japan or All Japan. Because a wrestler like that, who can't talk his way out of a wet paper sack, but can wrestle circles around anybody, they get lofted to Olympian heights. And I don't mean like gold medal Olympics. I'm talking like Mount Olympus. And that's the kind of performer that Bret Hart was. Shawn could put asses in seats.
Well, you started the show off by quoting Dave Mason I might have to end the show by quoting John Mayer.
Wow, we're going to go from Dave Mason to John Mayer.
Yeah. We're never going to beat this if belief is what we're fighting for, because it always comes down to what you believe. And I bet there's some people out there who watch pro wrestling because they want to see what the guys and gals can actually do in the ring.
Huh? I'm one of them. But that's not all I want to see. If I want to watch a great in-ring technical performer and that's it, you know who my favorite wrestler is right now? Chad Gable. If I'm going to ignore everything else, if I'm going to ignore, mic work, character work, anything else, if I'm just going to look at what happens inside that 20 by 20 box, my favorite wrestler in the entire world is Chad Gable.
Shoosh.
I would even ignore the shoosh. Just the simple fact that Chad Gable can work circles around anyone he's in the ring with. But that ain't what pro wrestling is. If you want to talk about, greatness is defined by what you can do on the mat, then you need to start watching the NCAA, not WWF, or WWE, whatever you want to call it. And because as much of an athletic endeavor that pro wrestling is, there's one thing that people always forget that it is. Boys and girls, this is performance art. Bret Hart was an excellent mat technician. Bret Hart was not a performer. AJ is a performer. Shawn is a performer. Bret's a mechanic. And that is why I make this argument. Rant mode off.
If you insist.
That was the incendiary thing I had. I'm like, okay, the door's been opened again. Thank you. I even got another Chad Gable reference in there. Man, I'm hitting high scores tonight, boys.
Shoosh.
Cheers.
Shoosh, please.
Isaac, Brian and I have been swinging at each other for 1 hour and 3 minutes. You got anything?
Okay, here's where I went in a different direction in the aspect when it came to not just titles and everything else. I thought, I wrote down some things. I wrote down some accolades for both guys. Bret old school, Shawn new school, who was a better wrestler, who was a better athlete, the factions, all that stuff. But, I thought about some other things. When you mentioned that Bret didn't have the charisma or the mic skills that Shawn had, I thought about that, and I stood here and I thought about lots of stuff. I thought about like Bret's career. I thought about what happened with him. I thought about the insinuatory comments that he made towards Bret, and how the fact that Bret took the high road on a lot of stuff that Shawn did and said.
I know you just did not use Bret Hart and High Road in the same dang sentence, Isaac.
Yes, I did, and
Bret Hart ain't took the high road on anything, man.
Hold on, no, and this is why I'm saying what I'm saying. You'll understand what I'm saying in a moment. Now I'm going to sit here and say this.
Because I'm telling you right now, I got a fire back for you, and it's
no, you don't.
saved.
No, you don't.
Oh yeah, I do.
No, you don't.
Bet me $100.
Well,
Bet.
Continue. Okay, now we're gonna sit here and we're gonna go back way before. We're gonna go back to the beginning. Now, when Shawn Michaels was hooking up with a certain someone and he had some sunny days. Hold on. when he made that comment, and knowing that Shawn, even though Shawn was with our friend Sonny over there, Bret took the high road. Now he went to the back and told him, "You basically crossed the line." When his kid was basically asking him about if he was hooking up with his son, that those aren't fighting words. That's when you're messing with the man when he's outside the ring. Now Bret took the high road there because he should have whooped his ass. You straight up should have whooped his ass. Now I'm sitting here and thinking to myself, would I have taken the high road? Probably not.
Bret's gone on record saying he knew Shawn was going to do it, and the only reason he said anything is because his now ex-wife, got in a tizzy. Hey, he ain't no different than Will Smith slapping Chris Rock. He didn't slap Chris Rock because he wanted to slap Chris Rock. He wanted to slap Chris Rock because he looked over to his left and saw how pissed off Jada was.
Now I'm gonna sit here and I'm gonna put this scenario to you, and you're gonna think about this for a second. Now, the fact being that you did something like this, but then Bret took the high road, and he didn't have the same type of visceral attitude that other people have. Now, let's sit here and say this. Now, if you start talking about another man's wife, and then your child is asking you if you hooked up with somebody else, let's sit here and put another person in that same perspective. Let's say, I don't know, Tupac. What would his response have been? What would have Suge Knight's response been?
Did Suge Knight or Tupac know that the other person was going to say it? Probably not. Bret Hart did.
Still don't need to go there.
Bret Hart knew it was coming. Bret Hart signed off on it until Julie got pissed off. Here we go. I'll let you guys make the rest of your points. I want to get my last one thing in. Throughout his career, both during his in-ring work and after, Bret Hart has been the best there is, best there was, and the best there ever will be. Actually, no. He is the second best there is, second best there was, second best there ever will be when it comes to being the single most bitter human being that ever walked the face of this earth. The only reason he's not the worst, the most bitter human being on the face of the planet is because I was just married to her. Boom!
I'm not gonna touch that one.
Oh, feel free. Feel free.
No.
Feel free. I want that smoke.
No, you don't want that smoke. I don't want that smoke. I don't want to sit here and bring up that topic when it comes to or not on the show or not hooked up or whatever with the show. Not going there down that road.
The opinions of Patrick Swafford do not reflect those of the rest of the cast and staff of Wrestling with Egos. They are his and his alone. There you go. There's your disclaimer.
I don't want this coming back on me for that one.
It's not going to come back on you.
Somebody needs to duck.
I can't.
Nah.
I can't counter that.
And you can read into that however you want, boys and girls.
Wow. Yikes. Well, thanks so much for tuning in.
Time. Before we get out of here, I know obviously I kind of said something that just kind of put the brakes on the show, but let's kind of dial it back in. Isaac's made some good points. I've made some good points. Brian, last word.
Again, I feel like this is an argument where there's no wrong answers. It's not like, if you come down in the Shawn camp, there's not legitimacy to that. And if you come down on the Bret camp, there's not legitimacy there either. I still feel like it's, sometimes you feel like a nut and sometimes you don't. Almond
Right.
Joy's got nuts and Mounds don't. That kind of thing.
Yep.
I can appreciate the things that Shawn has done to change his life, get back in the good graces with people that he's hurt and offended and that kind of stuff. And like I said at the top of the show, I did not come here to bury Shawn Michaels at all, because I still queue up matches of his on the regular. The matches with Taker at Mania 25 and 26. His trilogy or his battery of matches with Triple H, where it's always been about who's the best. The match at SummerSlam, the 2 out of 3 falls match at
Armageddon. And if I may, I do the exact same with Bret's matches. I will watch that match at Wembley, that SummerSlam match at Wembley against the Bulldog. I will watch that match the year before at SummerSlam with Mr. Perfect. And I will watch them over and over and over again, because those matches, mwah.
The 2 matches he had with Austin, the Survivor Series and Mania 13. I mean, the one at Survivor Series might have been a tad better, in my opinion.
I agree. That gets lost on everybody because everybody remembers the finish to 13.
But what I would love is for all of you people out in Wrestling with Eagles land to tell us where you come down on this. Do you prefer Bret? Do you prefer Shawn? Tell us why. Tell Patrick why he's full of crap. Tell me why I'm full of crap and why I should wake up and smell the coffee, even though I don't drink coffee. Because that interaction
right down the middle.
Yeah, that interaction is what we love about this show. We love the interaction. We love your comments and your critiques, and we want you to keep them coming.
Isaac, let me ask you one question as the music's queuing up, and you'll be kind of the final word on this. I'm going to ask you one question, and it's a yes or no answer. At any point during this show, this discussion, dialogue, argument, whatever you want to call it, between Brian and I, at any point in this, did either Brian or I say anything incorrect?
No.
That's the point I'm trying to make. And Brian, I completely agree with you that there isn't a wrong answer in this. We wanted to do this show because Brian's my best friend. I have no problem admitting that I probably would not be here without Brian. He has been instrumental in my life, in my growth as a person, my growth as a father. I would not be here without Brian and his wife. This is one of the few things that Brian Aloysius Krigo and I do not agree on, and it ain't even close. That's why we wanted to do this show. That way we'd actually finally friggin' argue with each other on something.
Now we can do it with decency and being conciliatory and everything, right, and not, insulting somebody's mama and stuff like that. But
right. But the point I'm making is that, yeah, we disagree, but neither one of us said anything that ain't true about the other wrestler or the wrestler that we're defending. Everything that Brian said about both Bret and Shawn, accurate. Everything that I said about both Bret and Shawn, accurate.
And I think in this discussion too, it's far too easy to just focus on what they did with each other. Because I think in that case, you can't see the forest for the trees.
No.
Because there's so much more to their careers than just what they did with each other.
And let's be honest, their in-ring rivalry was kind of meh, because it was literally Iron Man match, Montreal. I mean, they had matches.
Because I remember I gave a homework assignment before the Screwjob episode where one of the first times they ever touched.
Oh yeah, when Bret was Intercontinental Champ.
93, and we remember. I remember everybody thinking that was actually pretty nice because that match gets lost in the shuffle compared to everything else they did later on.
No, it was it was Survivor Series Bret was world champ and Shawn had just beaten Bulldog for the Intercontinental champ.
Yes.
On a Saturday night's main event.
Yes. And I
Those
gave
people
that
remember
specifically
that.
because 4 years late, with 4 or 5 years later, we come to this. And it's interesting to see where the seeds of that rivalry were planted.
So, what a discussion. I gotta be honest, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I got to shoot off some verbal napalm and
I'll say.
Yeah.
Right.
Hey, again, Isaac, at any point in this show, did I say anything wrong?
We can't argue with this one, ladies and gentlemen. He
The
didn't say
factometer is at 100%.
Say what?
I said the factometer is at 100%.
And guys, and I'll go ahead and say this for them, so that way they don't have to incriminate themselves. When they're saying that the factometer's at 100%, they ain't just talking about the stuff I said about wrestling, boys and girls.
Look at the time.
Ladies and gentlemen, to the
can you bring my car?
Good night, everybody.
That's my car right there. Just bring it around. I'll keep it warmed up. I'll be out in a minute.
My name is Bennett, and I ain't in it.
Hey, all good. All good. Guys, thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Wrestling with Egos. It's been fun. It's been inflammatory. Definitely not toward any of us, which has been great. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, leave us a 5-star review. Hit us up on the old Twitter machine at Wrestling X Egos, at least while Twitter's still around. We don't know how much longer we're going to keep this one afloat, boys and girls. If it dies off, you can find us on Facebook at Wrestling with Egos. We'll probably create an Instagram. We'll do something. But until then, we will see you guys next week, where we might actually talk about, I can't believe I'm going to say this, we might actually talk about Michael Cole.
Oh, really?
We might actually talk about Michael Cole.
Vintage.
And how he does not suck anymore.
I like that idea.
Might be an idea. You will have to find out in 2 weeks, because this time next week I'm still going to be in a turkey coma, and I'm also going to be 24 hours away from the greatest football rivalry in all of college football, and I sure as hell don't mean Ohio State and Michigan. With that being said, for the big man, for the intellectual savior, and the smartest son of a gun in the room, I'm Patrick. Thanks for watching Wrestling with Egos. And stuff like this, yeah, this is why we love wrestling.